Chapter 2. The first Heistone of Jho Low's best friends from his days at Harrow was Riza Aziz, the stepson of a prominent Malaysian government official, Najib Razak. By the time Jho had started his company, Najib had risen to a high-ranking position in the Malaysian government, which meant significant power. Jho knew that gaining access to Najib's inner circle could bring him major advantages, but just being friends with Najib's stepson wasn't enough. Jho had to prove his value. Jho soon learned that Malaysia was looking for partners to develop a massive construction project. The goal was to create a financial and lifestyle center similar to Singapore, but investors were needed. Seeing an opportunity, Jho used the wealthy connections he had made in the Middle East to broker a deal where they would invest in Malaysia's construction projects. However, the key part of this arrangement was that Jho allowed Najib to take full credit for the deal. Even though he had done none of the work, this significantly boosted Najib's popularity, making him appear as a politician capable of attracting major investments to propel Malaysia forward. This public perception played a crucial role in his political success. Jho's original business model was to earn fees for brokering such deals, but he didn't take a fee for this particular project. Instead, he secured something far more valuable: Najib's deep gratitude. When Najib rose to the top political position in Malaysia, Jho, still in his late 20s, now had direct access to the most powerful man in the country. Jho worked to further embed himself within Najib's family, showering Najib's wife with expensive jewelry and even covering Najib's daughter's college tuition. He also attended her graduation, strengthening his ties to the family. At this point, Najib trusted Jho completely. With Najib now in power, Jho proposed an ambitious idea. Malaysia should create its own sovereign wealth fund, similar to those in the Middle East, to invest globally. Together, they established the One Malaysia Development Berhad 1MDB Fund. Officially, the fund was designed to boost the country's economy, with plans to invest in green energy, tourism, and job creation. But Jho had another angle. He convinced Najib that part of the fund's money could be used as a political war chest, financing events and initiatives to secure greater public support. Najib saw this as a winning strategy and gave Jho complete control over the fund with little oversight. Officially, Najib was the chairman, while Jho was merely an advisor. In reality, Jho ran everything, surrounding himself with loyal associates who would follow his orders without question. Before long, Jho had arranged the first major investment for the 1MDB fund. Using connections in Saudi Arabia, he secured a joint venture with the oil company Petrosaudi. The plan was for 1MDB to invest $1 billion into the project, essentially the entire fund's capital at the time. With Najib's full trust, Jho received permission to transfer the money from 1MDB's accounts. However, Jho only sent $300 million to the joint venture. The remaining $700 million was redirected to a company called Goodstar Limited, which had a bank account in Switzerland. Jho claimed this was part of the deal, stating that 1MDB had to send the money to Goodstar due to outstanding debts owed by Petrosaudi. But this was a lie. Goodstar Limited was nothing more than a shell company, structured with bearer shares and opaque ownership system that makes it nearly impossible to trace who truly controls the company. Later, it was revealed that there was only one physical share certificate for Goodstar, and it was held by Jho Low. In other words, Jho had just transferred $700 million from 1MDB directly into an account he controlled. On paper, it appeared that 1MDB had made a legitimate investment, but in reality, Jho had just paid himself a massive sum. This maneuver was shockingly simple, yet it was the years of calculated networking and strategic positioning that had made it possible. From an early age, Jho had actively built relationships with influential figures, providing value to them to gain their trust. He had identified sovereign wealth funds as a vulnerable target, and, once Najib granted him full control over 1MDB, siphoning off money became relatively easy. With this position secured, Jho ensured the silence of key officials by offering bribes, which was effortless. With $700 million at his disposal, he had surrounded himself with a loyal team that wouldn't question his decisions. Now, with a nearly limitless supply of money, Jho was ready for the real fun to begin. Chapter 3. The Asian Wolf of Wall Street. Jho Low had successfully taken money from the Malaysian fund and funneled it into Swiss bank accounts and other investments under different names. Using his connections in high-ranking positions, he ensured that no one questioned his actions. Now, he had hundreds of millions of dollars sitting in his bank account, an unusual scenario compared to most wealthy individuals whose money is tied up in stocks, businesses, or investments. For Jho Low, it was all liquid, ready to be spent however he pleased. With this stolen fortune, he embarked on an extravagant lifestyle, purchasing yachts, mansions, and luxury sports cars. He even acquired a major hotel in Beverly Hills. But most nights, he could be found in exclusive nightclubs or casinos, indulging in his newfound wealth. Reports suggest that in just 8 months, Jho Low and his entourage spent approximately $85 million on private jets, alcohol, gambling, and paying models and Hollywood celebrities to party with them. Jho Low quickly realized that the money he took from 1MDB could buy him access to the rich and famous, further boosting his reputation.